beforehand. Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the July meeting of the Herefordshire Council meeting. A very warm welcome to you all. I want to particularly announce that this, of course, the filming and photography is being permitted at this meeting. If any of you who is present does not wish to be filmed or photographed, please inform a member of staff or indicate now. Otherwise, we shall take that as read. I remind all speakers that there are time limits during your debates. This is the last meeting, although he's not with us today, but Ross Cook will be leaving us as one of our directors. I think it is timely for us to put on record our thanks to him for the work that he has done for this council during his period. And he goes to Telford, but we won't hold that against him. I would also like to particularly point out that since our last meeting recently, we have heard of the passing of the former leader of Herefordshire Council, Councillor John Jarvis. John and his wife moved here from Essex to Whitchurch, and he represented Kernbridge from 2006 to 2015. As the Cabinet Member for the Environment, he was responsible for overseeing the introduction of the fortnightly bin collection and the black and green bins. And when he became leader in 2011, during his 2 years as leader, we saw the opening of the Old Market development. We also saw, after the building of the Rotherwas Access Road, the enterprise zone declared at Rotherwas. And he worked together with the former NFU chairman, Ben Gill, to actually do those slogans, "Here you can," on our county signage as well. So perhaps if we could just stand for a moment's remembrance. I've received apologies from, item 1 is apologies. I've received apologies from absence from Councillors Mason and Councillor Crockett. Are there any other apologies? Councillor Toynbee? Councillor Heathfield. Thank you. Item 2 is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest that any members wish to declare? There's no indications of interest. Very well. Agenda item 3 are the minutes on pages 11 to 16 of the meeting of the 23rd of May. No matters of accuracy have been notified. Is it all in your agreement that we agree these as minutes? Agreed. Thank you. That looks unanimous to me. We then move on to agenda item 4, which is the find attached the report. Sorry, yes, Councillor Bolter. Okay, fair enough. One abstention. Agenda item 4 is the reports from the Chairman and the Chief Executive. The only thing I would add to my report is to remind you all that, of course, next month on the 15th of August is VJ Day, which is the official ending of the 80th anniversary of the ending of the Second World War. It was something regarded as the forgotten army, and I hope that members will remember that and remind their communities of that as well. Chief Executive, have you anything to add to your report?
A couple of things from me, Chairman, please, if I may. Since writing the report, we've since had notification this week that the Care Quality Commission, otherwise known as the CQC, will be in Herefordshire undertaking their site visit as part of the overall inspection of adult social care services. The week commencing the 8th of September. As you'll appreciate, there's a lot of work going in now as we lead up to that inspection, preparing for that. And a range of interviews and meetings will take place towards the end of August. We will be arranging briefings with Hilary Hall, the Corporate Director, and Councillor Gandy in terms of the portfolio holder nearer the time. But it is an opportunity to tell a really positive story about the great work we do across our adult social care services and recognising our responsibilities with regards to the Care Act, for which we will be assessed. And I think worthy of note that we've also been made aware that it's likely we'll have a full re-inspection of children's services before the end of the year. And again, an opportunity to tell our story about continued improvements in children's services. And as we picked up from the Ofsted letter, kind of that significant improvement in the quality and consistency of social work practice and the positive impact that has on children and young people. I think when you think about the fact we just come through a local government corporate peer challenge, this is a 6-month period of intensive assessments and inspections for services across the council. It's significant services and a significant impact on the council and our resources. And yes, it's a real opportunity to demonstrate the progress we've made as an organisation, but equally we should be humble enough, and I know we are, to recognise there's still improvements to be made, and we'll face up to those and take that feedback as we come through those assessments and inspections. So more of that later, but important to let you know where we are.
Thank you, Chief Executive, for bringing us up to date. I will therefore move on to the next agenda item, which is agenda item 5, and that is questions from members of the public. Members will have submitted questions, of course. They will have received written answers and may now have the opportunity to raise a supplementary. I understand for the first one from Mr. Fecknell that there is no supplementary. Very well, we'll move on to question number 2, which is from Mr. Stevenson. Is Mr. Stevenson present? It doesn't, so there's no supplementary. Number 3 is Miss Martin. Miss Martin is in person. If you would come to the microphone, please, and ask your supplementary question. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you. I asked in my original question for...
Stick your head in that.
Thanks. Let's try again. Morning, everyone. I asked in my original question for evidence that the Western Bypass would somehow defy the laws of transport planning physics by achieving what no other bypass has ever done and reducing congestion in the city. The response was that you only have to look at the success of the Worcester Southern Link Road. I confess I was hoping for something a little more empirical than that, but I'm happy to go with that suggestion, because in fact if you go to Worcester, what you now find is that they not only have a congested city, but they're well on their way to having a congested bypass as well. And that's going to get worse.
Are you going to read your question?
Yes, indeed.
Can you do that now? Because you're time limited, you've got 15 seconds.
Right. So this scheduling scheme was completed less than 3 years ago. Does the Cabinet Member for Transport and Infrastructure understand that resurgent traffic in bypassed urban areas typically takes around 5 years to manifest fully, and that therefore the Worcester scheme is not really a very good example of a successful congestion relief measure? Thank you.
Cabinet Member?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Ms Martin, for your supplementary. The road layouts within historic cities has never designed to meet modern-day needs, with traffic growth having grown steadily in the last 30 years. As a result, Hereford road network is already struggling to cope with demand, mainly due to the throttling effect of the single river crossing. It is therefore common sense that an additional river crossing will help spread this load and ensure less disruption of traffic times within the city. Thank you.
Question 4 is Mr. Milne. Mr. Milne, you have a supplementary, please.
The Cabinet Member's one-line response fails to advance the Jacobs Court issue one jot. Grenfell Tower has been going on for 8 years, Hereford's Jacobs Tower for 15, and before anyone is injured by it, its unsafe panels must be replaced and the eyesore scaffolding and sheeting removed, if only to put a stop to the continuing drain on the public purse. I ask again, what is the timetable for carrying out the remedial work and recovering some £80,000 of Herefordshire Council's taxpayers' money that has been spent on scaffolding a building that is privately owned?
Thank you. Cabinet Member?
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Milne, for your supplementary question. The situation is ongoing, so it's very hard to give you a definite timeline because conversations are in train. So we can't really say any more than that at this point. Sorry.
Thank you. Question 5 is Mr. Morfitt. I don't think he's present. Therefore, we'll move on to Ms. Prothero. Ms. Brother, your supplementary, please.
My original question was about the potential cost of a Southern Link Road. My supplementary is what additional cost will be added to council tax to meet the ongoing cost of interest on this loan, and what will be the likely implications of this for other council services and projects?
Thank you. Cabinet Member?
Yes, thank you. We will be able to answer that question more fully come the middle of next year when we have the full design of the whole bypass, the costings and the expected funding arrangements in place. So I can't answer your question at this moment in time, but we will do so as and when the full design and the full cost and a contractor is lined up to be able to give us accurate costings. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 7, Ms. Albright. I understand that her supplementary is to be read.
Thank you, Chairman. 247 kilograms equates to around 3.45 million extracted from struggling local SMEs for no ecological gain. The Council is also in receipt of additional grant funding of around 2.7 million to specifically support housing delivery in the Lug. Does Herefordshire Council have plans on how to spend the funds they have accrued to achieve the best outcomes as quickly as possible? Is it ethical or effective to maintain the housing moratorium mitigation situation when evidence shows new homes are not the cause of the nutrient overload in the River Lug and new homes are desperately needed? Will Herefordshire Council write to catchment MPs and agencies to implore decision makers to remove the moratorium and instead adopt a fair share position that reflects the data, and to beseech agencies to prioritise catchment restoration rather than maintaining the ecological crisis and so continue to ransom cash from the wrong sector? Thank you.
Cabinet Member?
Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Albright, for your question. The Council's phosphate mitigation strategy was approved by Cabinet in February 2024, and that has the commencement of the second phase of the programme currently in delivery and a subsequent phase 3. Later this year, a further report will be brought forward to Cabinet seeking approval to commence the third phase, whilst also proposing the exploration of further mitigation measures to inform further and future phases. Council continues to work in partnership with stakeholders and government agencies towards achieving catchment restoration and the consideration of fair share. However, under the current legislation, we are still required to ensure nutrient neutrality as set out in the habitat regulations. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 8 is Mr. Hill. I don't think there is a supplementary. Thank you. Question 9 is Ms. Larn. I don't think there's a supplementary. Question 10 is Mr. McGowan. Mr. Gowan has one to be read out. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to Councillor Powell for confirming that all agencies' reports are submitted for review Child Protection Conference and their format. The report template clearly states, have you shared your report with the family and or person your information relates to, followed by a section for confirmation. I have yet to find a family who have received reports from other agencies 5 working days in advance of RCPC. I believe this part of the statutory duty has never been achieved, but my information can only be anecdotal. Councillor Powell, through his position, can access all the full facts. So what proportion of families subject to RCPC does Councillor Powell think get to receive these reports? An honest best guess at a percentage would provide a satisfactory answer. Thank you.
Cabinet Member.
Apologies, Chair, just give me one moment. I'd answered the supplementary this morning. I'd anticipated it being published. So if you give me 1 second. My apologies. So thank you, Mr McGowan, for your supplementary. As explained, I'd anticipated it being published this morning. As explained in my response to your public question submitted to Cabinet on the 17th of July this year, the timeliness of child protection review conferences is the statutory key performance indicator. The Director has confirmed that although most agencies do provide written reports, some will attend in person and provide a verbal report. It is for the author of the partner agency reports to share those with the parent and check the factual accuracy of those reports. Children's Social Care do not receive data on this. The Corporate Director has advised that the service is working on its own practice standards and the system monitoring of activities within them, and we have confirmed that the service do know from our case audits that this is an area of improvement required and is contained within our improvement activity.
Thank you. Question 11, supplementary.
Thank you. I mentioned contradictory evidence to Ofsted's letter of the 17th of July 25, for example, recent media coverage like the Observer's article and the upcoming inquest into a care leaver's death. But there is other evidence, such as anecdotal evidence and a letter detailing serious concerns about Herefordshire's children's services that was sent by Families Alliance for Change, in brackets Herefordshire, to Ofsted before their monitoring visit focused on children in care. There are around 400 children in care and 3 inspectors inspected over 2 days. Your response to my public question mentions the service also seeks feedback from current and recent service users. However, there is a substantial power imbalance between service users and social workers, etc. In view of the above, how can you be confident that the feedback process is really rigorous and is truly capturing the views and experiences of service users? Thank you.
Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ms Reid, for your supplementary question. The process referred to was introduced in September 2024, and by the end of March 2025, 109 families had given their feedback to us. They are not obliged to give that feedback, they choose to do so. In the first quarter of this year, 2025, a further 53 families have provided their feedback, which seems to indicate an increasing willingness from families to share their experiences with us, and we anticipate that this will continue to build.
Thank you. That concludes matters at agenda item 5. We'll now move to questions from members of the Council. We begin with Councillor Hitchener. Councillor Hitchener, do you have a supplementary?
No, thank you, Chair.
Very well. Councillor Proctor.
I do. In November 2024, the Council implemented a new IT system for HomePoint, which meant that every person registered on the system at the time needed to reapply. I cannot imagine any technical or administrative reason for this. I can't imagine that when we implement a new planning system, we will require everybody to resubmit planning applications, or that if we switch our council tax system, we will require everybody to re-register for council tax. So what is it about people seeking social housing that means the council thinks it's acceptable to treat them in this way?
Councillor Gandy.
Thank you. Councillor Proctor is correct in the fact that the system that was procured by the council for housing did require the information from the previous system to be transferred manually over to the new system. That was not considered to be satisfactory, but that was the system that was procured. It was not an ideal situation, but it did allow, as happens regularly in local authorities' housing departments, the opportunity to clean up the data that we had. And therefore, many people who at the time were on the housing list have not come forward to re-register, as they've either found alternative accommodation, moved out of the area, or their circumstances have changed. So when Councillor Proctor was given the information initially, it was quite low, but since then we have continually written to people who were on the register to make sure that they are not missed off, and we are continuing to put them on, and new people are going on every day. I accept, and I think the Directorate accepts, that the process of the procurement of that particular system was not what we would have wanted, but unfortunately we were not in a position to do very much about it at the time, and we are continuing to have concerns about some sections of that system.
Thank you. Question 3 is from Councillor Oliver. Councillor Oliver, do you have a supplementary?
No, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. We'll now move then on to agenda item 7, which the leaders report. I will remind members that they can only ask 3 questions in this entire section. So, and there is quite an extensive report to get through. And constitutionally, we have an hour. So we'll begin at 10:20, and I will ask the leader to do a brief introduction, and then we will go via pages from 27 to 41. Leader.
Thank you very much, Chair. As some members have commented, it's a long report, and yes, we've been very busy, not only with making key decisions, but also in engaging with our partners and the peer challenge and Ofsted. And we welcomed all of that engagement, and I think we're a better council for having that engagement. And so I welcome any comments and thoughts that members have on the report and the engagement that we've had.
Thank you. We'll begin at page 27, where it states Leaders' Report, and with some introduction. Is anybody got any questions on those topics on page 27? Yes, Councillor Hitchener, and then Councillor Proctor, and those are the only 2 indicated, and then I'll move on to the next page afterwards. Councillor Hitchener.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome the continued engagement with the 4 counties, continuing the work of the previous administration. What were the outcomes of the meeting the leader refers to, and were any actions agreed? Are the minutes to be published? Thank you.
Councillor Proctor.
I attended the Parish Council Summit, and it did seem that the county is addressing through the parish charter the concerns of quite a lot of rural parish councils. I didn't see in that discussion or in the charter how it is addressing the concerns of the city council. It may be the same for the town council. So how can the leader assure us that he's not going to take a one-size-fits-all approach to engaging with the parish tier?
Thank you. Leader?
Yeah, thank you. The meeting, the board meeting that was in Shrewsbury with the Marches Forward partnership with Powys, Monmouthshire and Shropshire was really productive in the sense that it was just an affirmation really of the need to work with cross-border issues and issues that affect our entire region. What was different, of course, is that we have 2 new administrations that have come along, and it was an opportunity to meet with them and to highlight what we highlighted before, that the commonalities and the similarities unite us more than anything that is different about us. And the one thing that I stressed on behalf of Herefordshire is that whilst we may work in unison, in conjunction with one another on specific issues, what I'm looking for is our respective cousins, councils, call them what you like, support us in anything that we want to achieve and give us that moral support that we need in achieving our objectives. And one of the issues I raised was, rail connectivity, of course, and one of the other issues I raised is the fact that, 20% of hospital admissions in our hospital come from Powys, and collaborative working in making sure that we're getting the right services and health services working with Powys, I think is really going to help us and give more power to our elbow. So I set the scene in saying, really, we look to our neighbours to give us that moral support and that and encourage each other to do well for the region. So I think it was a really positive meeting. This is obviously seen in the context of the fact that we've also got to explore devolution as well. But the benefit of this is that it emphasises that it's not just devolution, but it's cross-border issues that affect Herefordshire councils working, and that relationship is stronger for it. So thank you. And with regard to Councillor Proctor, I think one of the commitments I made is to engage with all parish councils, absolutely. And we have a city council and 5 town councils, and they have different responsibilities because they have a greater concentration of populations, and no more is that so than in the city itself. But I think what I was really keen to do is have one charter for all that is a living document that we all accepted may need improvement and strengthening in certain areas to cope with the fact that, you know, areas are different, rural areas versus urban areas, and if that document needs strengthening in any way to make sure that the relationship with town and city councils is accommodating of the fact that there is this a concentration of population, then we'll make the document better, and it'll be better for it for having that input. But in terms of my commitment and the chief executive's commitment to working with town councils and city councils, well, the city council, we're just on our second round of meeting town councils, and we've met Bromyard and we met Ross-on-Wye this week, and we'll be meeting Ledbury next week, and we're wanting to meet with the city council very soon to have that regular one-to-one meeting, but we also want to talk to the City Council about other issues that affect them. And so my commitment and the Chief Executive's commitment is not only do we have the Parish Council Summit Initiative and the Charter, but we are actively engaged in meeting our key partners, the City Council being one of them, and under my administration that will remain.
Thank you, Leader. We've only got an hour for all of this, so if you could keep your responses quite sharp, please. Page 28. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Page 29. Councillor Gandhi. Anyone else on page 29? Councillor Gandhi, then.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to refer to the report, within the report, the recommissioning of the Stop Smoking strategy, which is a really important strategy. Herefordshire does relatively well with regards to the number of people in Herefordshire who actually smoke, but we could do a lot better. And our public health team have done a lot of work. In particular, we are targeting the stopping of smoking by pregnant women and working with them to continue not to smoke after they have given birth. We've also taken on a scheme called On the Line, where we go to amateur football clubs across Herefordshire, where there are parents standing at the side of the football pitch cheering on their young people, but they are sometimes smoking, and we are then going up to them and asking them if they would mind not smoking on the football pitch. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Oliver, and then Councillor Simmons, and then I'll move on.
Thank you, Chair. I note the Stop Smoking strategy does not mention an increasing use of vapes, particularly by young people. Now, vapes are an example of innovation produced by technology. Has this innovation improved people's lives? We have this constant mantra that we will transform everything through innovation through technology. But innovation through technology can be a disaster as well as a success.
Thank you. Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Chair. And to just follow up on Councillor Oliver's comments there, I asked about this last year in the Stop Smoking strategy with regard to young people. We're now also seeing nicotine addiction through the use of snus and nicotine pouches. And I would just plead again that we do everything in our power as a local authority to cramp down on that wherever we can. Thank you.
Chair, if I can just respond to that, whether it's smoking, vaping, or patches, or any other form of nicotine consumption, it's an addiction and it's not good for health. And so whilst we've got the focus on smoking, which is obviously the really harmful way, the most harmful way of taking in nicotine, the Health and Wellbeing Board and the Public Health team, with the full support of Councillor Gandhi, are realising that they're all similar problems that need addressing, and the greater education we can pursue on this matter is the way we're going to solve these problems. Let's not forget, we've made huge progress on these issues over the years. I remember, you know, when one would go to the pub, the whole place would be full of smoke. But so we're light years away from where we used to be, but we've got to do more, and that's the focus of this council, to really pursue those issues, however the addiction is transferred.
Councillor Barnett, did you have a question?
I did, Chair, thanks. But honestly, it was about vaping, it was about SNUS, and thank you for the answers, and a very fulsome answer again from the leader.
Thank you. I'm now on page 30 on the 6th Ofsted monitoring visit. Are there any questions to the leader on the monitoring visit? If not, yes, Councillor Fagan. Councillor Fagan, any others? No others? Councillor Fagan.
Thank you. I refer to the commitment to developing child-friendly Herefordshire, and I'm just wondering what that looks like and how we imagine it's going to be underpinned by policy.
Thank you. Leader, do you want to quickly reply to that?
Yes, I'm time limited apparently. So yes, we're going to develop a policy, and we look to all 53 members to make sure that we are really child friendly. I think that there's two aspects. As Councillor Fagan and other councillors joined us in Coventry, spent you know, a good chunk of our time discussing with Coventry how they achieved things. There's two strands to this policy. There's making sure that everything we do as a council is child friendly. And then there's convincing the community that everything that the communities do is orientated towards being child friendly. I think we're at a very initial stage of that, and I look to all members to help us figure out how we can really make that concept take hold in Herefordshire and with Herefordshire Council. So I think what I would really like to be able to do, if with your help, Councillor Fagan, is if we could have perhaps a task and finish group approach to how we think as a council we should make that policy. I would welcome that.
Thank you. Page 31, Special Educational Needs and Education Strategy. Councillor Oliver. Councillor Oliver, no other indications. Councillor Oliver, please.
Yes, the urgent need under special educational needs and disability is to have sufficient places within our own schools to provide for the increased number of children identified as SEND. Placing them in privately run schools is an unbelievable expensive proposition, and it's, you know, we've had a 68% increase in places in private schools in the 12 months to 31st of December 2024, which has had a disastrous effect on the dedicated schools grant deficit, increasing it by 11.1 million. Is the council taking any effect to build more special places within Herefordshire?
I've no other questions on this item, so I will ask the leader to quickly respond to.
Quick response, Councillor Oliver. Yes, we're fully aware of the problem. He's absolutely right to highlight this as a major issue for our education, and it is extremely costly to place children outside of the county. But set aside the cost, we don't want our children educated out of the county. We want them educated in Herefordshire. It's better for their well-being, and so it's very much in our minds that we make sure that we get a much better provision as soon as we can. There are various strategies and projects that are underway, and I look forward to providing more details about those in future.
Thank you. I'm now on page 32 on the high needs budgets, the holiday activities and food programme. Councillor Stone, Councillor Proctor. Councillor Stone.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Leader, I welcome the fact that 4,264 school-aged children eligible for free school meals will benefit from the holiday activities and food programme this summer. Will the scheme continue during the autumn half-term and beyond? And secondly, Leader, would it be possible for the council at some stage to have a report on the progress of breakfast clubs in Herefordshire schools, which do so much to benefit attendance and concentration? Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Councillor Proctor?
Just before I ask this question, I'll draw members' attention to my register of interests, where I am married to the principal of the Royal National College for the Blind, which is a Section 41 provider. The high needs block deficit is a strategic problem for us and for all other top level councils. How is the leader going to manage that budget while still making sure that the young people of the county get the education provision that they need?
I've now got Councillor Kenyon, Councillor Fagan, and then I'll go back to the leader.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning. When we talk about health and children and that sort of stuff, I do volunteer down at Halo, the cycle track, and there's lots of good stuff that goes on down there, encouraging young people to get down there. Halo are also running a summer scheme where they can use the gym and all the facilities for £30 for teenagers between 13 and 18. It kind of would have been nice if we could have looked at putting some money into that, offsetting it, to encourage more children to go and do that. It's a relative small amount of money with that group of 13 to 18-year-olds, but if we're talking about keeping people fit, stopping them smoking, doing this, all the rest of it, I think work in an environment like that, it could work really well. So that's some thought for next summer, perhaps.
And Councillor Fagan?
Thank you. While it's great to have the summer activities for those on free school meals, I think the families that feel the pinch the most are those that don't actually qualify for the free school meals and the ones that are working and really struggle to find the childcare during the summer holidays. So I wonder if there's a way in which we can actually look at how we can support those families that don't meet that criteria but actually desperately need that childcare and support, which is extremely expensive, especially if you have more than one child.
Okay. Leader?
Yes, thank you. I was just looking at my computer and it's now restarting. So I don't know what that's about. So I won't rely on that. Okay, thank you. Yes, Councillor Stone, yes, over 4,000 children benefiting from the summer programme of free school meals and activities is really important. And it's really addressing the fact that some of those children are really disadvantaged. And so it's a really welcome project. We've got the funding for the summer. We haven't got the funding for the autumn term, but that's something we will have to pursue to see if we can achieve, because it is a very worthwhile thing and it really does address a need. The Councillor Proctor with the high needs block, the government, we are waiting to see what the government solution to this problem is. I don't like to pass blame to anyone because we must look to our own affairs, but the fundamental point about this is it's underfunded by government, and the sooner they accept that, the better. We are not in the extreme position of other authorities throughout the land, but even so, we do need a proper strategy to arrest this budget as much as possible, and we're working to do that with various measures, and we will set those out for members so that they're fully aware of how we can influence the cost of this. But government really needs to wake up and smell the coffee on this one, because you know they're funding schools to deliver services, but they have to appreciate that you've got to fund schools that cater for all children in all situations in life, and the sooner they realise that, the better. And Councillor Fagan, the summer activities, the squeezed middle, I think we could call it, those who don't qualify necessarily for this opportunity, but are still finding challenges with childcare. I mean, I find challenges with childcare myself, especially over the summer months, and so I think it is a real problem. And again, I think it's something that, with your agreement, that might be something that the scrutiny committee could look at to see how we can put more minds to that task, because you're absolutely right. The families find it challenging.
And you'd agree with Councillor Kenyon that perhaps that we need to coordinate with Halo?
Yes, I mean, Councillor Kenyon is always reminding me about the virtues of Halo and activities for our younger people And I'm fully in agreement with him that we need to explore those options even more.
Thank you. I'm on page 33 now. We've moved on to growth. We're talking about Bromyard. Somebody's indicate who's that? Councillor Harvey. Councillor Harvey. Councillor Harvey. Anyone else to speak on this items on this page? Just Councillor Harvey. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chair. Whilst it's heartening to read in the Leader's report that the Cabinet members taken a decision on the investment in the Bromyard depot, the reality underlying that is that after asking a few challenging questions about the financial modelling associated with that proposed investment, the Section 151 officer has agreed with me that the assumptions made are not sufficiently robust at this time to provide assurance over the financial viability of the scheme, and that further work is required to confirm, supported by evidence, estimates of rental yield, occupancy and construction costs, and that the decision will not be implemented until this further work has been completed, and that the monitoring officer the Section 151 officer has had the opportunity to check and challenge the assumptions and estimates which inform the financial ratios. Can the Leader please provide us with a view as to whether it's the right thing to be doing, to be investing in our economy based on where the council has a financial land holding, rather than necessarily where there are huge developments coming forward that are not in our communities, that are not being linked to growth in employment opportunities local to them?
Thank you. Leader, I've got no other questions on this these issues, so if you could answer that question, we'll then move on.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Harvey, for the question. I think what we can really be assured of is that we've got a very robust financial position in the council, and that has been achieved by having a really good finance team that looks at everything in great detail. And so when you've got a 151 officer saying we really need to look deeply into this to make sure that it's viable and that it will provide the things it's setting out to provide, is that's a great position to be in, and we welcome the fact that there's that scrutiny on such a major decision. You know, I can see Councillor Stoddart nodding his head and saying that's exactly how we operate, and we will make sure that things are done thoroughly and we fully assess the viability. I think what's at the heart of it, though, is that we as a Conservative administration years ago invested heavily in the enterprise zone in Hereford. That is paying dividends. That's a great, huge success. We're wanting to replicate that success to a smaller extent in Ross, and that's fantastic, and that's really good investment. But of course, it's not all about Hereford and Ross. It's about all of our market towns and about the whole county. And so what we want to do is make sure that we're investing in all areas of the county. Bromyard is a good example of trying to achieve that. Of course, we're not going to do things if they're not viable, but the heart of the sentiment of it is we want prosperity for all of Herefordshire and not just the centres where there are success now because of that investment. We want that success everywhere in the county.
Thank you. I'm now on page 34, where we're covering the Shared Prosperity Fund phosphate credits. Councillor Tully, Councillor Driscoll, and Councillor Stark. I'll have those three first. So, Councillor Tully first. Councillor Tully, yep.
Thank you. Around the UKSPF funds, understand that the funds for the current year can't be rolled over, but the delivery of the existing UKSPF projects this year has, as this year and as well as last, had a lead in time of about 8 months and a delivery time of about 4. from my experience, the community transport grant that's open at the moment will not even be able to start delivering until October, and will need to be completed by February, not March. So it's a very short delivery time. I know from, oh God, I've only got a minute. I know from the experience of the long admin time and minuscule delivery time from delegated grants, that has a very detrimental effect on community and organisations in the communities they serve. How will we be making sure that in future admin time is massively reduced from delegated grants, and project duration is maximised, and an indication of what other grants are coming maybe within this financial year? If there are more, community groups can prepare and be ready to apply.
Thank you. Councillor Driscoll.
Thank you, Chair. It was interesting to attend the PGC this week when we were looking at how the 1.4 million of retained business rates from the enterprise zone are going to be spent. Obviously, with the announcement that the UK SBF funding will not be continuing into the next year, there was some discussion around how this money moving forward may well be used to plug that gap. Can the leader assure me that the forecast 2 million a year from business rates won't be used to plug other gaps, and it will be additional to any money that we're putting into the budget as we have this year and previous years? So this can be spent on improving enterprise opportunities across the county rather than being used just to replace what we were already allocating from the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stark, and then I'll go to the leader.
Thank you, Chair. I have two questions on this page, 1 and 10 and 1 and 11. So do I get 2 minutes?
Let's go with the first one.
On 10, I would like the leader to actually update us on any engagement they've had with Natural England on lifting the moratorium on the Riverlog catchment area. We have a housing target of over 27,000, and yet we are really having to operate with that housing target with one hand behind our back, because 40% of the county is out of bounds, as it were, in terms of housing development, which means that poor old Ross, and I would say that, wouldn't I, has to bear the burden of this by having to accept, if we have to, under local plan, 3,000 houses in Ross. So could you update us on engagement with Natural England and lifting the moratorium on the north of the county? Thank you.
Thank you. Leader, can you give a response to those three? Yep.
Okay, thank you. Firstly, thank you to Councillor Tully. Yes, they're tight timescales, and charities and groups have contacted me to say that, you know, there's not much time to get all of these bids in and turn things around. So they've highlighted a problem. This is not our money, this is government money, so that it comes with the strings attached. But I will make inquiries to see if there's anything else we can do to make sure that community groups get all the assistance they need in that short space of time to make sure they maximise the grants that they can get their hands on, which is extremely important for promoting Herefordshire in lots of different ways. Councillor O'Driscoll, the issue about the business rates money, there's a plan, there's a strategy to invest in our economy, and I'd like to thank Councillor Biggs for coming up with a great plan that achieves many things and demonstrates that not only are we interested in our children and our citizens and the welfare and their health and well-being, but we're concerned about and want them to have prosperity and good jobs and good careers to keep them in Herefordshire, which is the best place to live, whether it's in Ross-on-Wye or Ledbury or in the countryside, wherever it is. So we want them to have good jobs in Herefordshire. The council's in a financially robust position, which has allowed us to invest this money in this way. But we will have to face the financial situation that this government will present us with. And once we know what that financial position will be in terms of the multi-year settlements, we'll be able to understand more fully how we can best use our resources to keep all of these positive initiatives going forward. But until we know more detail on that, I can't give Councillor O'Driscoll the assurance he's looking for. But what you can be assured of is this council will continue to, in any and every way it can, invest in our economy because of the requirement to have better paid jobs and skills and careers for our people. And Councillor Stark, yes, you're absolutely right. We're being asked to find 27,260 homes, and with the moratorium and the challenges that this presents, that is a real issue for us. But Councillor Swinglehurst and colleagues are always actively engaging with the powers that be on these matters. But Councillor Swinglehurst, I don't know if you want to add anything more to that.
Yes, certainly. So, yeah, there's this constant engagement with the statutory agencies. The statutory agencies are using the habitats regulations as their lodestone for this. We await the outcome of the Planning and Infrastructure Bill and the Nature Recovery Fund, which will provide strategic mitigation for housing, which should ease the situation somewhat, but it doesn't get over the basic principle of once housing has reached fair share, whether or not any form of nutrient neutrality is appropriate at that point. So at the moment, the phosphate calculator will continue to reflect the investment being made in the reduction in the share of phosphate coming from house builders. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Toynbee, Councillor Stark, number 2. Councillor Swindles, did you cover what you wanted then, or do you want a supplementary?
I have got a little bit more to say on that. I had 2 questions, so if I
Okay,
could.
so can I call on you now then, and then Councillor Toynbee, and then Councillor Stark?
Thank you. So following on from that point, really, I visited the Leinster Sewage Treatment Works last week, where there's been an investment of 12.1 million in phosphate removal, and also the Luston Wetland, which is providing credits for housing and also reducing phosphate. So it's clear to me that the house building sector is doing their bit to remove phosphate from the catchment. Does the leader agree with me that the imposition of nutrient neutrality once the house building sector have achieved fair share would be unfair and a better approach needs to be taken? Question number 1. Question number 2. Would the leader join me in welcoming the recent announcement of £150,000 from government for the delivery of a wide catchment plan, along with £850,000 for a living lab, and note the Council's willingness to take on the hosting and secretariat for the catchment partnership, which shows our commitment to enabling this work to proceed? Would he also acknowledge the importance of the 2 landscape recovery schemes, Wyscapes and Ridge to River, that include 8,500 hectares to support nature and river recovery? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Toynbee.
Thank you. Yes, my question, twofold question, is about Section 11 on river restoration. We can all see the pitiful, poisoned, parched state of our rivers at the moment. As far as our work as a council is concerned in river restoration, what are the leaders' main obstacles and frustrations at the moment? And what progress is being made in working with riparian landowners? Thank you.
And finally, Councillor Stark.
Thank you. This is on river restoration as well, and the Nutrient Management Board. Leader, can you give us any update on how the Nutrient Management Board has taken forward the challenge of actually improving the health of our rivers, and what we as a council are doing within the Nutrient Management Board to give it some sort of impetus to do so?
Leader.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you to my esteemed colleague, Councillor Swinglehurst. Yes, absolutely. If there are measures in place that have really addressed or are addressing the impact that housing has on the nutrient issues, then there needs to be a practical way and a reasonable way of dealing with their responsibilities. And I think that once that has been achieved, then we really need to take a common sense approach. We know that the majority of phosphate and nutrient issues comes from how the land is managed rather than house building. And there are various things that we're doing to improve the way we give advice on how to have a nutrient management, and further questions that have come down the line from Councillor Stark and Councillor Toynbee, they're answered by the fact that there's lots more, and there's a strategy that we have in order to address these issues. But in terms of house building, once these new requirements are in place, then we have to be really realistic and really get the house building programme back on track. The landscape recovery schemes are fantastic. I welcome them. I think it's a great initiative, and it just goes to show how environmentally focused this council is in pursuing those projects. Councillor Toynbee, what's the biggest frustration? Well, of course, I think the biggest frustration is none of these issues have a quick fix. That's the biggest challenge for all of us, I think. But there's strategies in place that we can tackle this issue over a long period of time. And if we've got those coherent strategies, then all we need really is good practice and patience to improve matters. With riparian landowners, that there is work that is going on, and there is the possibility of enforcement in various areas to make sure that riparian responsibilities are being honoured, and I look forward to updating you further on those matters in due course. And the Nutrient Management Board, Councillor Stark, I don't actually sit on the Nutrient Management Board, but Councillor Swinglehurst, I don't know if you wanted to comment more on that.
Well, the Nutrient Management Board is a board with a number of partners statutory agencies, environmental campaign groups, landowners and farmers, representatives of landowners and farmers, and so therefore the board as an entity doesn't has no ability to undertake actions, but the members of the board individually do. And those actions are reflected within the nutrient management plan. We are just in the process of a new iteration of that plan, and that we're anticipating that to come out at the end of this year probably. And that will enumerate the next phase of work. A lot of the initial work has been done taking care of the wastewater element of the phosphate problem. I mentioned earlier the £12.1 million investment in Leominster. There's £27 million investment in Ine and Rotherwas sewage treatment works. All of this removing phosphate. A total of £66 million spent in Herefordshire in the last AMP, and a total of, I think, about £120 million in the current AMP. But diffuse water pollution is very difficult to quantify, and measures taken to deal with that are many and varied. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I've moved on now to page 35, Shire Hall. I've got, yes, Councillor Oliver. Any other, sorry, I've got Councillor Harvey, and I've got no other indicators, so I'll take those two on this page and then call on the leader. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to note that the work has started on restoring the Shire Hall. It's been empty since June 2020. We're now 5 years since then, and only now taking serious efforts to restore it. I note that the design for the new library and learning centre have come through. Can the leader say with any certainty when this building may be back in use and the library opened? Will it be in 2 years' time or 3 years' time?
Thank you. Councillor Harvey?
Yes, thank you, Chair. When will the leader be recognising and making provision for the cost of the full refurbishment of the Shire Hall in his capital programme?
Leader.
Thank you, and thank you to Councillor Oliver for highlighting the fact that the building was in dire need of restoration. That's what's happening. We've appointed a contractor only a few days ago, and it's really exciting that the work will commence to restore what is one of the best and most historic buildings in the county. And I really look forward to the fact that it will be in autumn time where we look to open the library officially. Can't choose a date. It's subject to diaries and events, but yeah, it's on track. And we were discussing the matter yesterday, and all of these projects have timelines, and I was assured that we are keeping to those timelines as we speak. But it will be a very exciting time, and it will be really important to open what is a really it's going to be a great asset to be used for all of Herefordians and visitors alike. This is the start of a process, and we've got lots of investment through the Stronger Towns Fund, and we've got investment through the capital programme to take us to the necessary phases. And I think what is telling about going to the Shire Hall, there are things that need fixing, but there are rooms that are perfectly serviceable and you can use them today if you gained access. So to get the building operational, to get a great library in there, you know, we've got the funds to do that. And then once all of that is in place, we can be as ambitious as we like when we think about how the building will be used in future. And once we've established that further thinking, then we'll be able to put something in a capital programme if we think it's necessary to take it to the next phase. And I think in saying that, I've covered Councillor Harvey's question.
Very well. We're now on to page 36. On highways and resurfacing. Do I have any questions? Councillor Engels, Councillor Tillett and Hitchener. We'll get those three in that order, please. Councillor Engels.
Thank you. Earlier this month, there was another fatal accident on the A465 near Locks Garage. Locks is a great retail asset to South Herefordshire and an extreme accident black spot. And the latest tragedy was actually some way from the garage and the complex road junctions alongside it. But it has galvanised public opinion, and a petition for an emergency 40-mile-an-hour limit promoted by Locks has raised nearly 500 signatures in a week. There may be other solutions and fancy remedies, and they have been discussed for many years, but this is now urgent above anything on this page, and if this is not dealt with, the council, I'm afraid, will be held responsible.
Councillor Tillett.
Thank you, Chair. Earlier this morning, Councillor Hitchener highlighted the clearance or otherwise of the railings along Belmont Road, and as the ward member, of course, I'm delighted that they were cleared last week by Balfour Beatty. It would be very nice if it didn't rely on the occasional appearance of Belmont Road on the judging route for Hereford in Bloom. However, the clearance has highlighted a much more important issue of public safety, which is the totally parlous state of those railings, which are corroded, twisted and broken. The purpose of railings is to protect the pedestrians from the highway, and along that stretch, the state of the railings is such that if someone was to fall against them, I think there is absolutely no guarantee whatsoever that they and the railings and they would not fall into the carriageway into the face of oncoming traffic. Therefore, can I urge the leader that this extra £5 million, which does include structures, is used to include railings around the city and elsewhere in the county which are in a similar dangerous state, and also uses good offices to remind the Highways Agency that they have a similar obligation to the state of the railings on Greyfriars Bridge, where of course people will fall directly into the river. Thank you.
Councillor Hitchener.
The resurfacing of roads in the county is to be very much welcomed, even though much is to be financed by borrowings. By procuring this direct from contractors, how many extra metres have been resurfaced by comparison to what had been the case had the work been undertaken under the BBLP contract? And I have to say, Leader, I don't expect you to have that answer in your mind. The second element is about the borrowings. What is the write-off period for those borrowings, and how does this compare with the likely life of the roads? Thank you.
Leader, can you come back on those three, please?
Yes, I mean, firstly, Councillor Engels, thank you for raising the issue about road safety, and any loss of life on our roads is an absolute tragedy, and my condolences to all concerned. Road safety has to be one of the key priorities for Herefordshire Council. We have 2,000 miles of road, and that's how we get about the county mostly, and so it is a priority. That's why we've doubled the amount of money to in the revenue budget to address road safety measures. That's why we've put £3 million of capital programme in to address 3 accident hotspots, one of them being Locks Garage, and I look forward to that project being dealt with and instigated as soon as possible. I was not aware of the issue about the requirement to, the request to reduce the speed limit, and I think we should take advice from officers on that matter. But in terms of investing in road safety measures, there is a clear commitment by this administration to address those issues. And I thank Councillor Engel for reminding us that road safety is of paramount importance. With regard to road safety, it's not only just the roads, it's also the railings, as Councillor Tillett has pointed out. Pleased that the matter of the undergrowth has been addressed, but in exposing the fact that there are railings there that need our attention, we're aware of that, and we will be looking at the matter as soon as we can. And added to that now is obviously your concerns about the Greyfriars Bridge, so thank you for raising those issues. With regard to road resurfacing, it's having a dramatic effect on the county, and you know it's giving members of the public confidence that we are really addressing some of the key issues. Yes, we're improving children's services. Yes, we're making sure that the finances are robust. But what people also expect to see is road resurfacing, which improves transport, it improves health and safety, and it really improves the way we move about, not just in cars, but with bicycles, active travel measures. So resurfacing those roads is of utmost importance. And thinking about the rate at which the roads were deteriorating, this investment is a spend to save. Let's be absolutely clear about that. If you do not maintain the roads, you end up spending and wasting far more money in patching than you ever do in road resurfacing. So this is the right and logical approach, and the investment is a long-term investment which is desperately needed for our road network, and we will continue to take that approach. But the borrowing also allows us to use the other funds from the revenue to make sure that it is done on other projects such as road with surface dressing. So that's the right approach. The statistical information that we need, that Councillor Hitchener has requested, yes, I will provide a written answer for that, because there's a valid questions. But I think the important thing is about using contractors in the way we have. It's been a very expedient and fleet of foot way of delivering a lot of road delivery, because even with the best contractor in the world, there's a limit to how much they can do in a given day, and this has given us the flexibility to do as much coverage in such a short space of time. Because let's not forget, all of this work has to happen in clement weather, and so to mobilise our contractor and mobilise our network provider, highways provider, has been the right strategy.
Thank you. Now I've got Councillor James and Councillor Fagan, and then we'll move on. Councillor James.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry to rain on Councillor Lester's parade, but you know, the £10 million is not going to make a jot of difference. As to it won't even keep up with the deterioration in the roads in this county. I'm constantly contacted by people who say, you know, when is something going to be done? Now, central government over the last 10 years have reduced our block grant from, well, it used to be 30% of our budget used to come from central government in that way, down to nil. And we must recognise that with all this expenditure, it's infinitesimal compared to what the need is within the county. And even with this, we're going to see the deterioration of roads throughout the county, and especially if we don't improve the way in which we deal with potholes.
Councillor Fagan.
Yes, thank you. And I would just like to support Councillor Engel's appeal for a speed reduction at Locks Garage. It is certainly one of the most dangerous pieces of road within South Herefordshire. But I also wanted to ask whether we can actually support a speed reduction campaign throughout the county. One of the biggest issues that come to me as a councillor for rural parishes is the fact of speeding through our communities, and I noticed that 2 parish councils recently were refused an appeal to reduce speed through their parishes I wonder if this council would take a commitment to support parishes who wish to reduce speed of vehicles through their settlements, making them not only child-friendly, but also walker-friendly, rider-friendly, pet and wildlife-friendly. Thank you.
Leader?
Thank you. I with greatest of respect to Councillor James, who's one of the longest-serving councillors in the room, I think the road resurfacing project is making a huge difference. You know, and I think about, you know, Foundhope, for example, the community there have been blighted on their route to Ross-on-Wye for ages and ages and ages. But now if you travel that road, extensive road resurfacing has transformed the journey for those residents. And we've done it in lots of places. Not all of the road resurfacing has happened in my ward, although there has been real improvement in a stretch of road which was blighted for many years. For a whole community now benefits from that road resurfacing. We have to be realistic in that there's 2,000 miles of road and we can't resurface everything. And let's be honest, not everything needs resurfacing, and that's why we're doing surface dressing. But there are roads that are still good, and we're lucky that they're still good because we don't have to spend that money on them. But the alternative would be to do nothing at all, and that is not the right way of going about it. So I think this is making a real difference. But let's also think about this. Think of it in this way. For all those roads that have been resurfaced, there's less maintenance that they need, which means that we can put our resources on the other roads that do need maintenance. And so again, this is a classic example of spend to save and at the same time benefiting our residents. Thank you, Councillor Fagan, for your point about reduction of speed at Locks Garage, and I think that's something that we really have to take seriously, and I welcome officers' appraisals on that. I have a rural ward with 18 parishes, and speeding in their villages is a real issue. One of the things we have to separate, though, is where there's speeding in a 30 mile an hour, the speed limit's right, it's just the behaviour that's wrong. And that's a problem. And that is a problem that sometimes we can do something about that with enforcement, but other times if the road user chooses to be irresponsible, we're at the mercy of their being silly about that. So that's a real challenge, and sometimes there's no real quick answer to that other than to do what communities have done, especially communities that I represent, who've put up their speed indication devices, they've put up their fences and their gates to highlight the fact that this is a community where there's a school. Ashburton's working very well, and Stretton Grandison is working very well. But then there's the other issue about reducing speed limits when they're 50 down to 40 or 60 down to 50. And the issue that highways officers will say is, drivers drive to the conditions of the road, and if you artificially reduce the speed limit, there's a danger that you create an accident that you want to avoid. So there are counter arguments to reducing speed limits, and so what we have to do in wanting to address speeding, we have to see it in the round, and we have to listen to our officers and the engineers who have good reasons for coming to the conclusions that they do. So, and again, like the example I've given you about the 30 mile an hour, you can reduce the speed limit from 60 down to 50 or 50 down to 40, but will the road user do it because they drive to the condition of the road?
Thank you, Leader. And this is something that we can probably take up with the Chief Constable as well at the next meeting, because obviously speed enforcement doesn't lie in our hands, it lies in his. And now we've got less than 10 minutes now. I'm now on page 37. Councillor Swindlehurst has put her hand up. Councillor Robert Williams. Councillor Oliver, you've done your three, to be honest. And Councillor Simmons. So Councillor Swindlehurst, Councillor Robert Williams and Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Chairman.
And Councillor Durkin.
This is referring to the food and garden waste services. Along with the decision to provide food and garden waste collection, we've also introduced a small electricals recycling collection, and that includes batteries, and we've now expanded that service to collect vapes, which are highly dangerous when they get into the waste stream. They cause fires and are a risk to our operators. Would the leader agree with me that it's really important that residents do not put batteries, especially vapes, into the residual waste stream, but use the new recycling collection that we are providing. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Robert Williams.
I note in the report, obviously, we talk about the transport hub. Does the leader agree with me that obviously putting the active travel in is really good? And can you sort of highlight a couple of the good bits about it? Thank you.
And Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Chair. We brought this up in the political group consultation with regard to the local transport grant allocation. We understand the reasoning for moving and spending of the money, but yet again, the majority of spend appears to be within Hereford City, and our market towns are consistently being forgotten with regard to local active travel transport. Thank you.
Leader, do you want to come back quickly on those? And I've got Councillor Hercombe.
Yes, I mean, Councillor Swinglehurst absolutely right to advertise the fact that we've got the small electrical waste removal facility. That's fantastic. And really, the message should be, if you've got a vape, throw it away, but throw it away responsibly through this system. So I'm delighted that we've made that facility, which is adapting to the modern situations that we confront. But yes, there is that plea. If you have a vape and you want to dispose of it, please dispose of it responsibly. Do not put it in residual waste. Do not put it in the black bag. Please do the right thing and get rid of it. And all I would say is, once you've got rid of it, don't buy another one. So we welcome that, and we really welcome the fact that we're expanding our waste services to accommodate for people's needs. Councillor Williams, thank you for mentioning the transport hub. Councillor Price will be, whether he's bringing a digger or whether he's bringing a shovel, he will be turning up at the transport hub in August to commence works on the site. It's an extremely important facility for Herefordians, not just people in Hereford. I take Councillor Simmons' point, but this is for all people in Herefordshire to have a transport hub that can make sure that people can get to rail and use buses and active travel measures as well as car, to make sure that they carry on their journey out of Herefordshire in a very sustainable way. We're really looking forward to that coming online, and thank you, Councillor Williams, for reminding me. But Councillor Simmons, yes, you make the point about making sure there's investment in market towns as well. That's a very good point. We have to see through this transport hub. That's got to happen in Hereford, because that's where a major train service is. I know there are train services in Ledbury and Leominster as well, but this is where we want to create the transport hub. But your points about market towns are well made, and that's something we must consider for the future.
I've got Councillor Hercombe and Councillor Stone, and then I'll move on. I'm not sure which page I am on then, but anyway, I should be moving on then. Councillor Hercombe.
Thank you, Chair. Will the leader join me in congratulating the officers for their common sense on moving the funding for the local transport grant that couldn't be spent, moving it into highways maintenance works? I know Councillor James has suggested 10 million is a drop in the ocean, but if the residents of Kington don't want £10 million, I'm sure the residents of Berkshire will.
Councillor Stone.
Thank you, Chairman. Leader, I just want to raise an issue about the food waste containers that are mentioned in the report, the so-called larger outside caddy. These need to be secure, bearing in mind problems members may have read about in the press this week in the New Forest in Hampshire, with animals accessing some of the containers because of their rather flimsy nature. So could we look into the fact that the materials need to be secure before these are issued? And secondly, Leader, I think a very strong promotional campaign is going to be needed. All these improvements sound very good, but they need to be sold to all the residents as well. Thank you.
Leader.
Yes, thank you. And Councillor Hercombe, yes, thank you for pointing out that we're making best use of our funds from government and directing them where they really need to go. I've made my point about the virtues of road resurfacing and surface dressing works, and so I would agree that it's a really good use of funds. I wouldn't like to see those funds go all the way to one ward and not another. We want as much coverage as possible, but I take the point you make at Councillor James's expense, tongue-in-cheek. Councillor Stone, yes, first of all, we've got to have a really strong promotional initiative to make sure that residents are fully aware of the benefits of these schemes that we're proposing. And we've already talked about the small electrical goods removal, and that's a health and safety issue, as Councillor Swinglehurst has said, but also the benefits of getting food waste and garden waste into the right place is really imperative for this council, and I welcome the initiatives. And yes, I will ask officers to make sure that we've considered the issues about wildlife. I'm absolutely delighted to say that I think previous Councillor Yolandi Watson would be absolutely delighted to know that I have a hedgehog in my garden. It comes out every night at 10:20 in the evening, and it eats my cat's cat food and is thriving. But if we've got food waste there, we want to be very careful about wildlife. So if anybody does want to see a picture of this hedgehog,
Thank you, Leader.
see me later.
Yes. Look, I'm going to take 3 final questions on the remainder of this report. I've got Councillor Proctor. I've got... I'm going to take 3, so I'm going to offend somebody. I'll take 1 from each group. Councillor Proctor was next answered, Councillor Harvey and Councillor Woodall, and those will be the final 3. No, the final 3, because we've reached the hour.
The council has a putative tenant for Churchill House, which I am in favour of, but it appears to have agreed with the tenant that it would be suitable to build 2-metre high security fencing in the middle of Churchill Gardens. That's subject to planning, but even if planning permission is found, could the leader please go and review that decision? Not only do the residents of College not want 2-metre high security fencing in the middle of their park, I believe it will exacerbate a problem in a secluded area of the park, which this week led to a fire, which could have been much worse. So if we could review that specific situation, please.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you. Leader, why did your Cabinet consider it necessary to spend more than £250,000 of precious revenue and reserves reconfirming the independent financial assessment conducted by the Coalition Administration, which made it clear that his previous administration's pet project of the Edgar Street development was not economically viable back in 2020 and is even less viable now?
And Councillor Woodall.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Lester, for your extensive and informative report. On item 19, the student accommodation that's been cancelled, how has NMITE's leadership team reacted to the cancellation of this project with the inevitable impact on their growth and development plans? And I hope the strategic working group was involved with that cancellation decision. And in item 20, procurement of professional services to support highways and infrastructure. How is outsourcing these professional services, such as design, project management, transport planning, preferable to developing skills in-house, since highways and infrastructure, as we've heard, are going to be a perpetual activity for this council? Is there a way for our service partners to help us improve our training plans so our officers can be skilled up in these essential services?
Leader, if you could be as brief as possible, please.
Right. This is me being brief. Councillor Proctor, yes, we'll have a look at it, seeing as with the landowner. Can't alter a planning application process, but as with the landowner, we'll review that and appreciate your concerns. Taking in Councillor Harvey's and Councillor Woodall's point about student accommodation, yes, student accommodation is absolutely vital for the future of further education in Herefordshire, so we were very serious about progressing that. But when we were engaged with our partners to develop that, it became clear that the costs to this council were just not viable in a way. The mission remains the same. We need to provide student accommodation. So it's just the best way of doing that. And on reflection, when you see how expensive these things are, it's better to have a much more joined up approach so that it's a much more strategic approach, a wider scope of development, and that is what we've come to the conclusion of. And yes, the monies were spent there, but I'm not going to be lectured to by somebody who cancelled things that cost millions and millions and millions of pounds for this council. And I'm referring to handing back LEP grants to the magnitude of 20 odd million, 30 million pounds. So with regard to the Councillor Woodall's point, it's really important that we have expertise within the council and developing our own. And I think one of the points about having the Balfour Beatty contract and then coming to a different type of contract where we've got more in-house knowledge, that is a really good thing to do. But in terms of building highway infrastructure, that's an expertise that is so complex that it's much better to have an external company with all of their connections and expertise. And it's good to develop our own working relationship with them so that we can increase our expertise in-house, but there are just certain projects and design work that we could never be in a position to develop, which is why this is the benefit of having an expert organisation that will be fleet of foot in dealing with quick design remedies as well as big strategic projects. So I think whilst I acknowledge the fact that it's great to have expertise within the inside, it's always really advantageous to have expertise outside as well.
Thank you, Leader. Apologies to those of you that couldn't get your questions in. We have exceeded the hour for that, and I am conscious we've got 3 more motions to come. I suggest now, as I'd indicated earlier this week, we probably take a very short comfort break now, and we return in just under 10 minutes. So if I could have the live streaming just cancelled, please. Thank you. Welcome back, members, to the council meeting. We have before us 3 motions to discuss. I am conscious that this meeting will finish at 1 o'clock, and so I want to give ample time for all 3 motions, so that's approximately 25 minutes each. But we'll be guided by the time there. So try and keep your comments as succinct as possible. So we'll open with the first motion, which is before you, which regards the European Defence Herefordshire's role in securing the European Defence Industrial Strategy. And I'll call on Councillor O'Driscoll, please, to move the motion. Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Before I speak to the motion, I'd like to mark the passing this week of one of Britain's most enduring and unconventional cultural voices, Ozzy Osbourne, a performer whose raw honesty cut through noise and pretense. Now, I'm not sure if this has ever been done in a Herefordshire Council meeting before, but I'd like to quote a couple of lines from a Black Sabbath song. "The world today is such a wicked place, fighting going on between the human race." Those words from Wicked World were written over 50 years ago, but of course they're as true today as they were in 1970. They remind us that peace and security cannot be taken for granted, and that's why I'm speaking to you today. It is my sincere hope that we can all support this motion. It is not designed to divide us, but to bring us together for the long-term benefit of our county. I believe it's a practical, forward-looking proposal to ensure Herefordshire is not left behind in what is already a major realignment in both national and European defence and industrial strategy. The UK Government's 2025 Strategic Defence Review, Making Britain Safer, Secure at Home, Strong Abroad, sets out a clear plan, which includes a new £1.5 billion always-on pipeline of investment in UK munitions and energetics, £6 billion in weapons procurement that will bring thousands of skilled jobs, a commitment to raise defence spending to 2.5% of GDP, and, significantly, a new partnership with the EU to allow UK access to defence programmes like SAFE and REARM, worth nearly €1 trillion. Now, we may all have different views on defence policy. That's fair enough. But the question today is not whether this strategy exists, because it does. The question is whether Herefordshire will be ready to play a meaningful part in it, or watch as other counties seize the opportunity. Let's remember Herefordshire already has deep roots in this field. From the wartime munitions works at Rotherwas to our modern Special Forces presence, we're not starting from scratch. We're well placed with an established strategic footprint in defence and security. We're already the home of the only defence and security-themed enterprise zone in the UK, where companies work with the Ministry of Defence, innovating in everything from secure communications to field logistics. And we're in the heart of what's increasingly called the Hereford-Cheltenham-Malvern Triangle, home of the UK's largest cluster of cyber businesses outside of London. With Enmite, our engineering-focused university, and strong FE providers like Herefordshire and Ludlow College, we're already part of the solution to the UK's chronic engineering skills shortage. This motion doesn't propose any single development. It simply asks the Council to prepare a credible, values-led prospectus, one that highlights our readiness, our space, our talent, and our strong track record. It also recognises local concerns. That's why it calls for any defence-linked development to align fully with Herefordshire's values: environmental responsibility, ethical governance, and meaningful community benefit. It supports fast-tracked planning only where these high standards are met and seeks investment in infrastructure where it's needed most. Now, some of you might ask if it's realistic. Yes, it is, if we act now. Other counties are already lobbying, planning, and positioning themselves. This motion simply says Herefordshire should be doing the same. Others are going to worry that this is a distraction from our immediate needs like housing, social care, education, and roads. But to me, it's the opposite. If we want better services, we need a stronger economy. Jobs that keep young people in our county. Growth that's sustainable and rooted in high-value clean tech industry. Investment that boosts our tax base and our confidence. Chair, this is a serious measured motion rooted in fact, not ideology. It does not wave a flag. It does not seek conflict. It seeks readiness. And as Shakespeare wrote, The readiness is all. Let's ensure Herefordshire plays a key role in making sure that we are. I urge members to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Driscoll. I remind members that the full details of that motion are on page 51 of your report. Councillor James, did you want to second now or later?
Later.
Very
Thank
well.
you.
All right, I'm taking speakers, Councillor Biggs, Councillor Harvey, Councillor Simmons. I'll take those three, and then I've got Proctor Powell, Tully, Bartlett. Hang on a minute. Let me do the first three first. And Stoddard. Okay, Councillor Biggs first.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of this motion, Herefordshire Council has proactively been seeking to develop our opportunities regarding defence and security. As an example, and as mentioned, we're one of only 2 councils in attendance at the Midlands Defence Sector Roundtable in June, hosted by the Manufacturing Technology Centre. The roundtable brought together leading representatives from the military and the MOD. We discussed how the Midlands are well placed to respond to the national call to arms following the Defence Review. Following the closure of Midlands Engine, I'm pleased to share we've been invited to the West Midlands Combined Authority to be part of an emerging regional defence and security cluster, the RDSC. This will ensure Herefordshire continues to play a leading role in regional and national discussions, enabling local businesses to grow whilst continuing to play our role in contributing to the security of the country as a whole. Lastly on this, we're members of Leading Edge, a group of rural counties that have identified we all have a military presence and are working together to ensure we benefit from government contracts. Some other headlines to share can't be detailed in 3 minutes. Special Forces and Cyber at the forefront of modern warfare. We have unparalleled local strengths. Scarland Park, as Councillor Driscoll said, is the only defence and security themed enterprise zone in the country. The county already has small and medium-sized businesses in this sector we're regularly engaged with as a growth hub, leading the way internationally in new technology and R&D. Specialist former military people in the county utilising their unique skills and insight to create new businesses, actually making and evolving drones, for example, within a few miles of this full council meeting. We have engineering businesses supplying military supply chain in specialist areas such as small-scale nuclear reactor development. We're meeting international defence businesses looking to base themselves in the county, given our location and the existing broad business base and opportunities. We formed an inward investment function for the first time to lead these opportunities and already developing the supporting prospectus. MIT are leading the way too, addressing the gap in critical engineering skills, taking on MOD apprenticeships, evolving new partnerships with BAE to create opportunities for research and development. I think you'll see I'm happy to support this motion. Much is already in train. I'm happy to support actions that are not. And further to that, I'm always happy at any time to discuss with councillors actions we can take for the prosperity of our county with or without a motion to council. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Simmons, and that'll be followed by Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chair. I fully support our growing defence business sector, our skilled military community, veterans, families, and welcome the motion's sentiment. I have spent the last week speaking to some of our defence companies, and I and they would like to try and understand why the sort of quite narrow focus on attracting a munitions factory within this motion. For a number of reasons, I would be astonished if we attracted one of the 6 munitions factories proposed in the SDR. The motion does not recognise that the SDR also commits over 1 billion to cyber and digital defence, 400 million to a defence innovation organisation, and 6.6 billion to broader research and development, including AI and autonomy. I believe that this motion should be better focused on helping Herefordshire work to position itself as part of the regional strategic asset that Councillor Biggs was just referring to, home to the elite forces, capable of hosting innovation hubs, upskilling and training operatives central to our national food, cyber and defence infrastructure resilience. Given all this, my first question is, could Councillor O'Driscoll explain what he means by the motion's reference to long-standing role in munitions production and advanced manufacturing of the type to attract a munitions and energetics factory? Our role in munitions production ceased 80 years ago. My second question is, given everything I have said, and as Councillor Biggs has said, would he consider revising his motion to better play to Herefordshire's strengths within the Strategic Defence Review?
Thank you. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chair. Having spent my career working in the defence and security sector, I saw the title of this notice of motion and thought, great, a debate that I'm going to be able to fully support, but then I read on and my spirits flagged. Given the subject, it's both disappointing and rather ironic that this motion not only misses its target, but goes into some considerable detail in doing so. Yes, Hereford used to have a munitions factory, which sadly killed many of its workers either very suddenly in tragic explosions or tragically very slowly from the toxic jaundice caused by TNT poisoning. But nostalgic calls to resurrect a munitions industry is not, I contend, where this council should be expending its energies. I was for a while the operations director for the Defence Diversification Agency, a government initiative to spin technology out of defence into civil sector applications and to harvest fast-moving technology being developed in civil industries for defence purposes. Herefordshire is already home to many niche, innovative, high-tech engineering and creative sector businesses which follow one or other of these models, either as a consequence of the SAS camp nearby, or Kinetic, or GCHQ, or because excellent specialist businesses which have grown up serving other markets have found themselves relevant to the fast-moving, complex and broadening global risk landscape. Herefordshire is attractive to the sort of people who work in the creative industries, and defence and security sector is absolutely about creativity and innovation. As a council and as a county, we should be recognising, supporting and celebrating the creativity and innovation of our existing businesses and doing more, even more, to encourage new ones to grow, from the seeds sown in Emmite and the Art College to the start-up spaces offered by the Shell Store and Cyber Centre. Home-based software businesses, live-work setups in converted farm buildings, mini business parks in our train station sidings, and broadband-enabled digital businesses in our rural communities. High-value, fast-moving, small footprint, low-profile businesses fitting in and complementing the communities in which they're situated. Defence and security is an important high-value component of our current and our future economy. But looking to the future, let's build on the strengths of today rather than harking to the not-so-good, good old days of the past. Is a munitions factory the best idea we can come up with? I really hope not. Is defence and security an important part of the county's economic future? Absolutely.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Proctor, then Councillor Powell, and then Councillor Tully.
I will keep this quite brief. I think, like probably the majority, if not all members, I am in support of this motion. I hear what Councillor Biggs was saying. I would just highlight, I was recently at a conference where I heard the Chief Executive of Cheltenham Borough Council talking about the investment they're making in a huge cyber infrastructure related to GCHQ. I spoke to them afterwards, and they were well aware of Kinetic and the important role there, but they had no idea that Hereford had any skills in the defence sector at all. And so we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that we may know about what a great and thriving defence sector we have here, but not everybody else is aware of that.
Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Chair. When we look on a global stage, I know many may agree with me when I say we have a madman in the White House, and we never know from one day to the next if he and his administrations are friends or foes when it comes to the defence of Europe. As a nation, we should have been investing in our defence at this level and not relying solely on the United States decades ago. I fully support this motion, as Herefordshire has always been at the heart of this nation's defence, and this motion simply future-proofs our country's defence and Herefordshire's role within it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tully.
Thank you, Chair. I'm struggling to see how the first 5 points of what's before us don't go against the sixth and our obligations for Herefordshire. The economic vision we're all working towards is a vibrant, healthy, inclusive Herefordshire. Our economic plan details actions that include building basic infrastructure so that all our key industries can grow. Our priority of growth includes building business confidence and of people includes healthy and safe communities. About points 1 and 2, I'm unsure how a munitions facility will create a prosperous, healthy community or support safe communities. Create a prosperous, health community, I can name multiple towns in the UK which contains a munitions facility for a UK defence prime with eye-watering health deprivation scores. Supporting safe communities, facilities are being increasingly targeted at the moment as a distinction between UK defence and private companies profiting from sales to horrific regimes becomes increasingly opaque. About point 3, I absolutely agree that we should call on the government to support rural areas like ourselves with infrastructure upgrades. Infrastructure that supports all of the major sectors in the county: agriculture, tourism and tech. We could together have resolved to write to the government 3 months ago to urge them to support the infrastructure of the agriculture sector. That motion was withdrawn and we never were able to discuss it. About point 4, I'm unsure how engaging with UK defence primes in the current climate supports Herefordshire and its well-being. Defence primes are the largest private arms manufacturing and export companies concerned with not just UK defence but globally. A number of top UK primes have been named by the UN as currently profiting from and supporting genocide. Unless we're engaging with these companies to establish the difference between UK defence and exporting to arm other regimes, which I don't think is the job of Herefordshire Council, then I don't see how this engagement could benefit the people, place and the growth of Herefordshire in its current form.
Thank you. Councillor Bolter? No, okay. Councillor Stoddard.
Thank you, Chair. One of the most proud points or points I've taken up in the last 2 years is as chairman of the Armed Forces Covenant Partnership. I'd just like to remind all members present at the minute of the fact that 11% of households in Herefordshire all contain at least one, if not more, veteran. The national average is 7, and therefore we have the highest proportion of veterans in the West Midlands. I'd also like to make you all aware that Herefordshire is a national leader in the support that we play to our veterans. We've been a lead member of the partnership since 2019, and the Herefordshire Veterans Support Centre, led by Sam Lewis as the chair of the trustees, provides exceptionally and exemplary levels of support for all veterans. And in fact, in a recent visit to the county by the Minister for Veterans Affairs, Al Cairns, he actually used us as an exemplar of how Up Valor, the new £50 million government initiative, will use and support veterans. In addition to that, NMITE and the HVSC support a great deal of work to enable members of the armed forces as they transit from a military career to a civilian career to assist them in that transition of work. So what I'd like to say is the armed forces family is not just only those who serve, but also those who have support members who are serving and also veterans. And in fact, there are actually quite a few members who are veterans in the room today. So I'd like to just say, in amongst that rambling mass of speech, that I very much support this measure and will give it my full support. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kenyon and then Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chairman. Ed, I think this is great. You know, often I read through these things and I think, oh God, some of the motions, you know, later on might be one of those. But this is good. What they're trying to do is create a cluster. I joined, and to answer one of the councillors down there, I joined the military to protect, not to kill. And so there's a little mix-up going on down there. And if there are these opportunities to get these factories, why not here? Why not in Herefordshire? If it's got to go somewhere, why not here? So you started off, was it the Dark Prince that you mentioned? I'm going to finish with Queen, I think. I want it all, I want it all, and I want it now. Let's get everything we can, let's look at all opportunities, and let's go for it. So absolutely going to support this, and thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you. Councillor Oliver, follow that.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I support this motion because the essential thing in a war is ammunition and munitions. And we are absolutely short of munition factories across Great Britain, as is proved in our support, in the support needed for Ukraine. What they are needing is ammunition supplies and armaments, and we struggle to keep up with this. So I think it's not only possible, but it is an urgent need in Great Britain to have more munitions factories if we are to have a successful defence.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Bartlett, and I've got no other indicators, so I'm going to then go to Councillor James for a second, and then go to the proposer of the motion. And then I will propose to go to the vote. So those are the remainder of this debate. Councillor Bartlett.
Thank you, Chair. There's a lot of good stuff in this motion, and we've heard some really good stuff from Councillor Biggs, Councillor Stoddart. We do have a lot of expertise here in the county, but I do wonder, in including the munitions factories in this motion, we're jumping straight to a request, which makes me wonder, in putting this motion together, have the Lib Dems actually asked our SMEs and this sector that's so strong here, is this the right approach? Is this the way that we should be going? Because we don't want to go to the government and find out that they're just concentrating on one thing in this big motion that we're asking to write about. And the inclusion of the munitions in what could have been a very good motion has just weakened it. It's a very narrow focus, and it's very short-sighted about what could work very, very well for the county. So for me, the inclusion of that is a real flaw and not a strength. And so, I can't fully support this motion as it stands now. It would be a lot better if we weren't asking for factory jobs, but we were asking for full-on support for all of the added value jobs that we're trying to create. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor James.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't think people realise how serious the situation is in the world at the present moment. This is the most serious point since the 1930s. And this is the most important thing we'll actually discuss, and we're a small cog in this situation. We are going to destroy the planet. We've had motions about climate warming. If we don't stand up and stop the Russians in Ukraine, then you can forget about climate warming, because it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Because they won't stop there. They're going everywhere. We've already got a president in the United States who doesn't actually believe in it. For goodness sake, wake up and smell the coffee. We are in dire danger as a modern civilization from the dark to go into the dark ages unless we stand up. And the one thing that we are short of, we're not saying that there shouldn't be all sorts of things, but munitions and ammunition is so much important in this war. And that's what we're running about, the Ukrainians are running out of. America is very doubtful whether it will continue to supply. If we don't stand up, this is Hitler in the 1930s that's going on in Eastern Europe. And the sooner we realise it, I realise that the Green Party for a long time wanted us to pull out of NATO and rely upon negotiations, but we can see where that's getting us. For goodness sake, think about the future of the planet, because that's going to be destroyed by the Russians in the coming years.
Thank you, Councillor James. Councillor Driscoll, would you like to sum up before I take the vote?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you for all your comments today. As I said, it wasn't designed to divide us, because this is policy. This is happening. It is happening. These munitions factories will be happening. There is a need. There is a need across Europe, especially in the UK, for additional munitions, as Councillor Oliver said and as Councillor James said. And it's just saying that we want that opportunity to come to Herefordshire. We want those jobs in Herefordshire for Hereford people. That's what I'm saying. Let's position ourselves there as a leader. You know, we're doing some great stuff already, but we can always do more. And hopefully this will highlight that fact and it will push it forward. I'm going to ask for a name vote, please, Chair. Thank you.
There needs to be 8 of you standing. Can people indicate if they want a name vote on this, please? I've got 1, 2, 3. Yes, I think I've got 8. Thank you. We'll have a name vote. And being as it is a Lib Dem motion, I'll begin at A. Very well.
How kind of you, Leader.
Thank you.
I've been missing this opportunity for so long.
That's right. Yes, we got Councillor Crockett and Councillor Mason missing. So the motion is before you on page 52. I'm going to ask for all those in favour, and we will go through a named vote. I will ask the monitoring officer to read out your name. You will then say for, against, or abstain. Monitoring officer.
Councillor Andrews.
For.
Councillor Baker. For. Councillor Bartlett.
Abstain.
Councillor Bartram.
For.
Councillor Biggs.
For.
Councillor Bolter.
Abstain.
Councillor Bramer.
For.
Councillor Carwardine.
For.
Councillor Cole.
For.
Councillor Cunthwaite.
For.
Councillor Claire Davis.
For.
Councillor Dave Davis.
For.
Councillor Durkin.
For.
Councillor Dykes.
For.
Councillor Engel.
Abstain.
Councillor Fagan.
Abstain.
Councillor Foxton.
For.
Councillor Gandy.
For.
Councillor Gennard.
Abstain.
Councillor Hamblin.
For.
Councillor Harvey.
Actually against.
Councillor Highfield.
For.
Councillor Hitchner.
Abstain.
Councillor Hercombe. Councillor James.
For.
Councillor Kenyon.
For.
Councillor Lester.
For.
Councillor Mason.
Not here.
Oh, thank you, sorry. Councillor O'Driscoll.
For.
Councillor Oliver.
For.
Councillor Owens.
For.
Councillor Pebbody.
Abstain.
Councillor Phillips.
For.
Councillor Dan Powell.
For.
Councillor Ivan Powell.
Abstain.
Councillor Price. Councillor Proctor.
For.
Councillor Simmons.
For.
Councillor Spencer.
For.
Councillor Stark.
For.
Councillor Stoddart.
For.
Councillor Stone.
For.
Councillor Swinglehurst.
For.
Councillor Taylor.
For.
Councillor Thomas.
For.
Councillor Tillett.
For.
Councillor Toynbee.
Abstain.
Councillor Tully.
Abstain.
Councillor Alan Williams.
For.
Councillor Rob Williams.
For.
Councillor Woodall.
Against.
Thank you.
Oh, you counted already. Well done. You always count before.
38, 2, 2
Thank you. Always doing faster than me.
Members, I can announce that the vote was carried by 38 votes for, 2 against and 10 abstentions. So that motion is carried. Thank you. Now move on to our second motion, which is regarding the future of neighbourhood plans and their support. And I call upon Councillor Davis to open this motion.
Thank you, Chair. This will hopefully be a straightforward and short motion. It's all about funding for neighbourhood development planning and our support for our parish councils. I think you'll all agree it's key that our parish councils have their voice, and this is a part of that, where they can turn around and say how they want their parishes to be developed in the future, and the funding for that and the ability for them to have that support to gain the expert advice and guidance that is required to make those plans sufficient to be able to hold up their desires is key, and this funding has helped them do that, which has now been taken away. So we want to reinstate this funding, and it's as simple as that. Thank you.
Thank you. And the details of that motion are on page 53. The second of the motion is Councillor Williams. Do you want to speak now or later?
Later, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have indications of those who wish to speak in this debate? Thank you. I've got Councillor Stark, Councillor Harvey and Councillor Bartlett. Yeah. So those three first. So Councillor Stark.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I do support the spirit of this motion, but I just wonder how realistic it is. The government has stated that it is withdrawn funding from neighbourhood development plans, which is very regrettable because our communities do need to have a voice as much as they can have a voice in the planning decisions that they are subject to. On that point, Chair, if the funding is no longer available, I just wondered whether the council would be willing to step in and fund the NDPs themselves. I know it's not part of the motion, but it would certainly help if we knew that in terms of this debate as to where the executive stood in that. But I will support the motion, even though I do think it's a long shot at the end of the day.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey?
Thank you, Chair. Previous Conservative administrations have made much of the high proportion of parishes across the county that have committed to neighbourhood planning since the adoption of the local plan in 2015. Unfortunately, this is not to their credit, since most communities have engaged with the long and laborious neighbourhood development planning process as a defensive measure in the face of what they see as a local planning policy framework which is harmful to the amenity and temperament of their communities. Government grants to assist with the considerable cost of the process have been a huge assistance to our parishes in developing hyperlocal policy frameworks, which now we once again are, now that we are once again without a 5-year housing land supply, are often the only thing that stands between parishes and predatory developers, because our spatial policies are once again all but set aside. It's very unfortunate, and some might say cynical, that at exactly the time the government is threatening this county with massive and unrealistic housing delivery targets, it has at the same time removed the funding mechanism by which communities can engage meaningfully with the local planning process. To my view, our parishes are currently being poorly advised to mothball their neighbourhood planning groups pending the revision of the local plan. The current housing targets present such an existential threat to the county that all engaged parishes should have active groups considering county planning matters and developing views on likely local impact of emerging policies and plans. I would urge parishes to consider commencing this work, whether or not funding support is made available. I support the aims of this motion, although I hold scant hope that any of the proposed lobbying actions will bear financial fruit.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Bartlett, then Councillor Swindlehurst and then Councillor Engel.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I do support this motion, and it because as well it's supporting the work of NALC, the National Association of Local Councils, and a lot of, I think probably all of our parish councils have had correspondence with them about this and this need for the continuing funding. It's even for a small parish, it's a lot of work that we're asking volunteers to do. And as when you start getting to the size of some of our market towns, it is a huge amount of work. And the money is desperately needed to create a plan that is cohesive. So I agree with Councillor Harvey that don't wait until the local plan has been completed. Parishes should be looking at this now, looking at what it is that their areas are going to need, what has changed since the last time they wrote their plans, what's needed now. Because one thing as well that comes out of this second round of writing the local neighbourhood plans we now all have at least 5 years of experience. And we probably have a huge folder that says, blimey, wouldn't do that again. And we know a lot more about how our neighbourhood plans work alongside Herefordshire Council and how the Herefordshire Council planning works and how it needs to fit with whichever local plan we have. So I think even more so, continued funding of these plans is really important. And I think parishes should be starting now. Learn from the experience of working with these things for 5 years and get ready to come alongside the local plan at the appropriate time. But I do support us writing and urging that this funding continues. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smidlehurst.
Thank you, Chairman. I am in support of this notice and motion. I was very closely involved in the writing of the neighbourhood development plan for my own parish. I know what goes into it. I know what local communities have had to do to get their neighbourhood development plans written and adopted, and how much hard work that is. And this withdrawal of funding is a complete betrayal of all that work and all that dedication, and it's basically taking decisions out of the hands of local people, their ability to make constructive input to how they want to shape their communities. Thank you.
Councillor Engel.
A few months ago, the government were telling parish councils that their NDPs were out of date. Then they said that they couldn't actually start preparing a new one till another year passed. Now they said they're effectively that they can't have them at all. This is a government that talks of devolution, which is being used in a Orwellian kind of way as newspeak, and I support this motion, whichever side of the floor it came from.
I've got no other indicators to speak, so I will call upon Councillor Rob Williams to second the motion.
I'm not going to go on because, you know, I don't tend to. So it's just about, for me, democracy of local people engaging in local issues. That's it. If you agree with it, you don't. If you do, you do. Hurrah. Amen.
Thank you. On that basis, I will then return to the proposer to say, do you need to make any summing up before we go to the vote?
Thank you, Chair. No, I think everyone's quite clear and understands where we stand on this, so I think we should go to the vote. Thank you.
Thank you. I've had no cause for name vote, so we'll do it by the traditional manner of raising your hands. So the motion is before you on page 53 regarding the future of neighbourhood planning support services. All those in favour, please show. I think that looks like unanimous. Can I just, if you've dropped down, can I just check that it was unanimous? Nobody else? No, no. One against. So that is carried then by majority. Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll move on now then to our third motion, which again is on page 53 in your report, and I'll call upon Councillor Harvey. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chair. 1942 marked what is considered to be the turning point in the Second World War. This was also the time when an innovative research project was commissioned by government, which was tasked with developing a joined-up approach to planning for the programme of rebuilding and growth that the nation would need once the war was over. A body of planning professionals, social scientists and government experts worked out of Birmingham University to undertake 2 detailed and holistic planning studies to inform the development of the country's first national approach to planning policy. One of these reports was focused on Solihull and the Black Country as an area of intense industrial development. The other used Herefordshire as the example of a deeply rural county. I have here a copy of that detailed report published in 1946, which I would like to present to the Leader of the Council today. The report highlights the beauty of this county, its wealth of wildlife, protected environments, and the importance to the nation of its high-grade agricultural land. The report also recognises the county's geographical and topographical constraints, the significant proportion of the county that is subject to flooding, and the excellent road and business service and bus service networks that existed at the time, and many of which have since been lost. Despite the pressing need at the time for our nation to rebuild, this report made it crystal clear that Herefordshire needed to concentrate on growing food for the nation and looking after its unique landscape, wildlife and river systems. The report is very clear. Significant housing development was just not appropriate for this county. Now, that was nearly 80 years ago. Much of what was recommended to happen has since come to pass, and, thank goodness, many of the things that had our county recognised as such a precious jewel in the country's crown do still remain with us today. But we are definitely at a tipping point. In 2015, this council adopted a local plan that proposed to deliver at least 2,500 more homes than even government models said was deliverable. As a direct consequence of that, for 5 years we failed to demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply, and communities across Herefordshire became subject to predatory and unplanned housing development, including my market town of Ledbury. These new housing targets propose at least 10,000 more homes than this county can reasonably expect to deliver, 4 times the over-allocation of the 2015 plan. Please let's learn from the painful experiences of places like Ledbury. This motion quotes the exact wording of the Deputy Prime Minister's letter, which allows for councils to take an evidenced approach to pushing back on the government's imposed growth targets. Let's support our officers and Cabinet to make this case for sustainable growth when the evidence is available.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Councillor Toynbee, I understand you're going to second. Do you want to speak now or later?
I'll speak now, thank you, Chair.
Very well. Councillor Toynbee.
I second this motion as an expression of our commitment as a council to firstly ensure that Herefordshire has the housing that we need, and secondly to stand up to the unreasonable top-down demands from central government. Councillor Harvey's typically thorough historical background information just now is very helpful. We're having this debate today in the wider context of a lot going on in Westminster at the moment around housing, planning and local democracy. And I'm sure colleagues will be following closely the progress of the Planning and Infrastructure Bill through Parliament. And yesterday it was being examined by the Lords. This bill will have a huge impact on Herefordshire. And we're currently putting together our local plan, as others have mentioned. So this is a good time for us to speak out and make sure that we're doing everything we can to make the law work for Herefordshire. The government talks a lot about streamlining and modernising the planning system, and this makes some of us, including Councillor Engel, suspicious. For whose benefit? Developers or local people? I've yet to meet a councillor or a resident who's saying, yeah, these targets are great, let's get on with it. People also ask if we can't just ignore them, but we can't because the sanctions for not complying are really harsh, including government taking over our planning processes. A cynic might even wonder if they're mandating targets that they know are out of reach as a pretext for imposing more centralised control, overriding local democracy and weakening the voices of local people. We all want more housing, but targets on their own achieve nothing other than sound bites. They don't magic up homes, they don't tackle protecting the countryside, social infrastructure, land availability and land banking. What we do need targets for is social housing, and we need more support from government for that. Housing targets must be based on local need, and government must be more flexible. It's easy to feel a bit disheartened about all this, so let's use this motion to speak up for Herefordshire. I think ministers are aware of how badly Angela Rayner's plans are going down at local level, and they may be open to negotiation and to amending targets which will show that they're listening and enable them to save face. To do that, we need evidence. We can justify a lower target by demonstrating constraints on land and delivery, such as protected habitats, flood risk, heritage assets and poor transport links. And our officers are well aware of that. All these factors apply to Herefordshire. And this motion can add impetus to our evidencing those constraints and how we work to overcome them. So this motion supports the Council to use every lever we can to challenge the targets through the system. And as politicians, we can continue to challenge political attempts to override our local democracy and make sure that decisions that affect Herefordshire are made in Herefordshire. Thank you very much. Please support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Toynbee. I've got Councillor O'Driscoll, Councillor Swindlehurst, Highfield and Proctor. So let's go to Councillor O'Driscoll and then Councillor Swindlehurst.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'll be supporting this motion, not because I think it amounts to anything meaningful, but precisely because it doesn't. Councillor Harvey's motion expresses a certain hand-wringing dismay at government housing targets. It says the targets are unjustified, not evidence-based and unsympathetic to our county. And yet the motion then confirms that we will, as requested, do our best to allocate land in line with them. So let's be clear, this is a declaration of discomfort, not a commitment to resistance. It doesn't challenge the premise. It doesn't propose any concerted political action, legal test or coalition of councils pushing back. It simply records that we're unhappy about being asked to do something and then signals our intention to go ahead and do it anyway. I'll support it because it doesn't do any harm, but let's not kid ourselves or our residents that this is a stand. At best, it's a bit of a sigh. At worst, it's an attempt to look oppositional while quietly complying. If this council wants to do something more than note its regret, then it needs to show it through lobbying, challenge and collaboration. Motions like this are in truth what happens when we feel uncomfortable, but not uncomfortable enough to act. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Swindlehurst.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to thank Councillor Harvey for bringing this motion to the Council and facilitating this debate. A central pillar of the Labour government's election manifesto was to build 1.5 million homes. In order to achieve this, they developed the new National Planning Policy Framework, or NPPF, which, due to the standard methodology used, has led to a substantial uplift in housing requirements in many rural areas, including Herefordshire. Housing targets set by government are no longer advisory, they are mandatory, and any council that does not plan for these new targets risks falling into special measures. The consultation draft of the National Planning Policy Framework was published on the 30th of July 2024, and I worked closely with officers on the council response, which was returned to MHCLG on the 24th of September 2024. And to demonstrate alignment with the aims in the notice of motion, I will quote some of the responses that we provided in the consultation last year. I'm happy to share the entire document to anyone that's interested. Quote, the mandatory targets proposed seek to distribute significant housing growth to rural and peripheral counties that are not necessarily equipped with the level of infrastructure required to support such levels of growth. Distributing such growth to rural and peripheral counties is unsustainable. A mandatory increase of 43% to Herefordshire's housing target is too high. Herefordshire has greater need for affordable than market housing according to our needs. Increasing the total housing is not going to solve that issue. The 5-year housing land supply requirement must be removed, as enforcing high housing targets alongside this requirement will be a departure from a plan-made system, as appeals will rise. Exceptional circumstances should not be removed. It's taking realism out of plan making. Infrastructure planning and for housing go hand in hand and must be jointly coordinated. Localism is at risk, as such mandatory targets will affect 5-year housing land supply, leaving communities always open to speculative development despite best efforts to plan for appropriate growth in their areas. The National Planning Policy Framework was issued on the 12th of December 2024, making it clear that housing targets are no longer advisory and this level of growth must be accommodated. Contrary to the Council's feedback to the September 2024 consultation, this figure remains high at 27,260, which is 240 homes lower than the 27,500 proposed in the draft document. This motion contends that it is possible to deviate from mandatory targets by justifying a lower housing requirement on the basis of local constraints. This has been discussed with the Planning Inspectorate. We were advised that it would be highly unlikely that the Council would be able to present sufficient evidence to deviate from the mandatory housing target on the basis of local constraints. The new NPPF will create planning by appeal until such time as we can demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply. That is not a good outcome for Herefordshire. I am therefore in support of the motion, but more in the spirit of defiance than a realistic expectation of change. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Highfield.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I think what I wanted to note is that this illustrates the anti-democratic nature of this current government, which we also heard about with respect to neighbourhood development plans. They have imposed this upon us, and the tiny reduction that was given in the original target is showing that they were just paying lip service to all of the things that Councillor Swinglehurst has listed that should have been very persuasive. But I will note, finally, that just because you have a target, you cannot mandate people like Bloor Homes to build them if there aren't the customers. And what happens when we don't get enough development? Simply, we've identified the land and we've identified the opportunities, and they don't take them up because there aren't enough customers for that housing. That's something that the government cannot control. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Proctor, and then Councillor James, and then Councillor Thomas.
I will support this motion because I am in principle against the government telling us how many houses we need, but we need to be realistic and look at what local housing targets have delivered us in Herefordshire. Private rents massively outstripping wages, private housing to buy massively outstripping wages, the demand for social housing, as discussed earlier, we don't actually know what that is, but thousands of people in need of social housing, £3.5 million spent last year on keeping people in temporary accommodation. This is not just bad for people, it gums up our economy. So, though I will support this motion, and like everybody else, I don't expect it to make any difference, we as a county need to focus on meeting the needs for housing that are so relevant here. I'm actually a fan of the report that Councillor Harvey was holding. One of the things that's really innovative in it is it identifies a swathe of what my grandmother used to regard as slums, very low value housing that was lying derelict, and says that perhaps with a little bit of encouragement, young families might be encouraged to move into these houses and spend money on them and upgrade them. And those are timber framed houses in places like Pembridge. And I think while I will support this motion and I'm very cross with the government, I think we also need to encourage our officers to rise to the challenge that is set and take some innovative approaches inspired by the report that Councillor Harvey has brought with us.
Thank you, Councillor Proctor. Councillor James.
Thank you, Chairman. I think we are more than happy to support it, but with the proviso that we don't think there's a blind bit of chance that anything will happen as a result of it. The good news is that I don't think it's going to happen anyway, because I don't think the building industry is so structured that you know, even if they had the planning permissions, I don't think they'll build unless they've got the demand. I'm sure if there were 20,000 houses built in Ledbury or near the motorway, it might actually sell them. But through most of the county, it's not possible to sell those houses. And we've got empty houses within my ward, and I'm sure throughout the county as a whole. There are houses, unbelievable amount of houses, that are not occupied through various reasons, and we should be concentrating on that to a certain extent. But also, we do need housing, but we need housing appropriate for young people to be able to start on the housing ladder. So, you know, it won't make a blind bit of difference, this particular. It'll go straight in the dustbin in Whitehall.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Thomas, then Councillor Hercombe, then Councillor Kenyon.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I support this motion, and I will just make a comment on our last councillors. Many years ago, and before most of us were born, except for me, Macmillan built 1 million houses. There were 980,000 people in construction, my job, or was my job, There are now less than 200,000 people in construction. The big consolation is what Councillor James has said, you'll never build these houses. A, you can't sell them. B, we haven't got enough workers before you even worry about where these properties are going to go. And if you look at the county, and in the county that I know better than most, there aren't many places that you can actually put extra houses because you haven't got the doctor's surgeries, we haven't got the infrastructure. It is all pie in the sky. Yes, and agreeing with our Liberals, we probably are giving mouthpiece to it, but we will have to look to be going along with it. But practically, it'll never ever happen. Thank you.
Councillor Harkham, Councillor Kenyon, and then Councillor Rob Williams.
Thank you, Chair. You were doing so well with my surname, but it's slightly slipped. So Ronald Reagan once said that the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government, I'm here to help. Alas, in Herefordshire's case, if only they would. The government has given us an unrealistic housing target which takes no account of local limitations or existing building capacity, while also removing the funding to allow local communities to play a part in the planning process, leaving this council to find space for 30,000 houses with no funding currently allocated to support parishes in shaping this growth, or for the vital infrastructure we need to support these new developments, including upgrading the leaky and overloaded sewage network in the rural north of our county. 4 out of the 5 parish councils in my area have sewage spilling out onto the streets at times of heavy rainfall, yet each of these was allocated new housing in the previous local plan, and no doubt will be again, only at a greater scale. As part of the Cabinet, I've seen the dedication of our Cabinet Member for Planning and our senior officers who've moved every lever that we know of to try and get the government to see reason. Unfortunately, our arguments fell on deaf ears. I'm firmly against these housing targets. They're wrong for Herefordshire and they're wrong for my local communities, and I'll be supporting the motion before us today.
Thank you, Councillor Harkham. Councillor Kenyon.
There's always one fly in the ointment, isn't there? That's me today on this one. The big boys have had their own way for a long time. If they come in with a big plan application, they always get it. The little person wants to build a house in his garden, something like that, they never stand a chance, or it's so difficult to do that sort of thing. Now, the market dictates the market, as it's been said earlier. The big boys aren't going to come in and build lots and lots of houses. The average build, I don't know the figures, but I know it's quite low. The average build per year of houses in Herefordshire, it's what, sorry? 800. And they're proposing for us to build how many? We're never going to get near it. Okay, that's the long and the short of it. So it opens up an opportunity for smaller builders that spend their money within the county buying their materials to build their houses in the county. I think this is a good thing. So I won't be supporting this today. And that's the reason why, because I think it's an opportunity for smaller businesses and people to build their own houses and houses that they want to live in.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Rob Williams. I've got nobody else indicating, so I will then probably return to Councillor Harvey to sum up the debate. Councillor Williams.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out something around about housing mix within it. I know we don't talk about it, but as a young person in the county, to be blunt, the only way I'm going to be able to get on the housing ladder is waiting for family members to move on with a reasonable deposit. And I think, I just think we need to think about everything in this in terms of like affordability to get on. All right, that's it.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey, would you like to sum up, please?
Okay, thank you, Chair, and thank you to the support received in the room from members during the course of this debate. In summing up, I'd like to say let's recognise that those wartime planners got it right 80 years ago when talking about Herefordshire. Let's also learn the salutary lessons from this council getting it a little bit wrong in 2015, and let's not get it very wrong indeed in 2025 onwards. Presently, our rivers are suffering, our farmers are battling challenges on all fronts, our communities are facing repeated 1,000-year flooding events. Our towns and city are beset by a mix of housing development which is unaffordable for local people and fails to meet local needs. Our villages and rural communities are being forced to take more than half of all the development that's happened since the local plan was adopted in 2015. Ledbury and Ross have both been subject to huge planned and unplanned developments without the promise of local infrastructure, coming forward in a timely manner to mitigate their effects. The latest housing targets sprung upon us by central government are not based on realism and deliverability. They're founded in an they're not founded in an understanding of or sympathy with the nature of this county and the particular role we fulfil in the diverse patchwork of our country's counties. As the response to one of today's public questions sets out, our officers and cabinet have already had a go at pushing back on the dictated growth figures, and I thank them for the effort already expended. Unfortunately, this first attempt was unsuccessful, but we do have another opportunity to make a more compelling evidence-based case for a realistic housing growth target using the data being gathered right now for the revised local plan. Since 2015, Ledbury has been forced to grow at more than twice the rate originally imagined, with officers now proposing a more than double that in the number again if these new housing targets go unchecked. Please let's not force the sort of unsustainable growth on Herefordshire that Ledbury and other places have already had to suffer. Let's not be prematurely defeatist either. Only yesterday, Parliament News published an article questioning whether the standard method of calculating imposed housing targets will deliver the government's objectives for affordable homes and calls for a rethink. The opportunity exists. Let's give it a try. Let's take it. Today, I'm looking for every member of this council to give our officers and our cabinet the strong signal that we support them making that justified case for the very necessary adjustment to the growth target that we've been given, whilst there's still time.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. So we're going to move to the motion. The motion is on page 53 and 54. It'll be by show of hands. In that case,
I know, but I've asked for one.
Can Councillor Harvey have a few friends to stand up as well, please? Or put her indicates 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that looks. Does that look like? We need 8. 8. We've got 8. That included Councillor Hercombe as well. I just want to make that official. Very well. We'll have a name vote. We'll begin at W. Keep you on your toes. If you're supporting the motion, you vote for, otherwise against or abstain. I'll call upon the monitoring officer to read out your names.
Councillor Woodall. For. Councillor Rob Williams. For. Councillor Alan Williams. For. Councillor Tully. For. Councillor Toynbee. For. Councillor Tillett. For. Councillor Thomas. For. Councillor Taylor. For. Councillor Swinglehurst. For. Councillor Stone. For. Councillor Stoddart. For. Councillor Stark. For. Councillor Spencer. For. Councillor Simmons. For. Councillor Proctor. For. Councillor Price. For. Councillor Ivan Powell. For. Councillor Dan Powell. For. Councillor Phillips. For. Councillor Pebbody. For. Councillor Owens. For. Councillor Oliver. For. Councillor O'Driscoll. For. Councillor Lester. For. Councillor Kenyon. Against. Councillor James. For. Councillor Hercombe. For. Councillor Hitchner. For. Councillor Highfield. For. Councillor Harvey. For. Councillor Hamblin. For. Councillor Jennard. For. Councillor Gandy. For. Councillor Foxton. For. Councillor Fagan. For. Councillor Engel. For. Councillor Dykes. For. Councillor Durkin. For. Councillor Dave Davis. For. Councillor Claire Davis. For. Councillor Cornthwaite. For. Councillor Cole. For. Councillor Carwadine. For. Councillor Bramer. For. Councillor Bolter. For. Councillor Biggs. For. Councillor Bartram. For. Councillor Bartlett. For. Councillor Baker. For. Councillor Andrews. Thank you. That was everybody. I don't know how many. And one against. I don't know how many people? How many was it? 49, that's it. Didn't know how many people were here.
49 and 1.
Yeah, 40, yeah.
The results of that are 49 in favour of the motion, 1 against, no abstentions. Therefore, the motion is carried. Can I thank members all very much for their attendance today? Can I remind you that the next full meeting of Council will be held on the, when he finds the piece of paper, on the Friday, the 10th of October at 10 o'clock. Can I ask that the live stream is finished, please?